Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jean Rognetta. I'm the president of PME Finance, which is the French part of the TechCapitalMarkets consortium. And I welcome here IESE, the Spanish and Catalan part of the consortium, and TechTour, the Belgian and Pan-European part. The purpose of this webinar will be to talk about the road to the stock market for startups and SMEs. And I welcome and thank for coming Valentin Brotons Borrell from Grupo BME. Welcome, Valentin.
Thank you.
Before we begin the webinar, first of all, this webinar is being recorded and it will be put on the TechCapitalMarkets website at disposition. And the second point, if you want to interact during the presentation or after the presentation, you have in the lower part of your screen a Q&A box, which will let you put written questions on the chat interface. Just use it anytime and our speaker will take the questions in time and answer them. So welcome everybody. Valentin, the chair is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hello everyone who is online in this webinar. I would like to thank first of all Tech Capital Markets program and the IESE Business School for giving me the opportunity to perform this presentation. And especially thank you, Victoria, for drafting this PowerPoint presentation. Okay. My name is Valentin, and I am working for Bolsas y Mercados Españoles, BME Group. This company is the operator of all stocks markets and financial systems here in Spain. And in order to be an example, Grupo BME has been a listed company since 2006. Okay. In general terms, I am responsible for analyzing and advising those companies seeking going public on the alternative Spanish exchange market. On these slides, there is an overview of my professional background, but to speak freely, for sure, this is the less important thing on this webinar. So if you don't mind, we can move forward to the next slides. The structure of this presentation will be divided into 5 parts, right? One introduction. The second point will be the best practices and opportunities for small and medium enterprises, SMEs, in Europe. Reasons for going public, conclusion and success cases, and lastly, all of you will have time to ask some questions, okay? As we will have only 20-25 minutes, I think that this presentation covers the most important concepts we need to note and summarizes well this topic. In this regard, I will try to explain why stock markets can be useful, not only for large company, but for SMEs as well. First of all, we need to know what SMEs means, okay? According to the European Commission definition, SMEs are those companies with less than 250 people employed, with an annual turnover up to 50 million euro, and whose assets worth up to 43 million euro. It should be noted that within the European ecosystem, and according also to the European Commission, there are more than 25 million companies whose profile suits in this SMEs definition. Anyway, to be focused on the Spanish market, in this country, the 99% of the companies are SMEs, but it is very important within this 99%, the majority of these companies are even smaller than SMEs, being therefore micro SMEs companies. So we can conclude that in Spain is not an SMEs country, but it's a micro SMEs country. To have an idea, micro companies employed less than 10 people and their sales are less than 2 million euros. In this sense, and for that reason, maybe capital markets in Spain are less developed than other European economies, such as France or Germany, as these countries, unlike Spain, really have a critical mass of SMEs companies. Within the European ecosystem, we have to point out that this high number of SMEs in Europe, it does not correspond with the low number of companies listed in the Union Exchange. Therefore, we have a weak pipeline of SMEs seeking a listing. Maybe the main drivers behind this weakness of the European public markets for SMEs will be, first of all, the local ecosystem supporting companies at the listing are under pressure in many European countries. As well, there is a lack of institutional and retail investors for SMEs financial securities. And especially, there is a lack of tax incentive for both companies seeking a listing and investors investing in this kind of companies. Under this situation, some actions have been implemented at the European level that will help SMEs in the listing process. And a sample of these actions will be creating throughout MiFID II regulation and a specific regulated market for SMEs, growth markets exchange, simplifying listing process and costs, promotion and advantages of being listed on this growth market as SMEs, and creating an investing vehicle specialized in SMEs markets. For example, one vehicle will be the LTIF, that means European Long-Term Investment Fund, that in some countries like Italy, there is a tax incentive on investing through LTIF since the last year. It for sure is helping and attracting more retail investors. More or less, this is the current situation and ecosystem at European level. On this slide, we can see a sample of the main European exchange focused on SMEs. In this pie, apart from this exchange, I will add one more market, the AIM of Italy. And at a glance, I will tell you more or less the main figures of these markets, okay? The IEM of London has more than 850 companies. The Nasdaq First North, which englobes Sweden, Iceland, and Finland, has more or less 350 companies. Euronext Growth Market, that englobe France, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Ireland, have 2,030 companies. After that, we have AIM of Italy with 230 companies. And lastly, we have the Spanish MaB with 120 companies. Once we have had an overview of the main alternative markets in Europe, let me please introduce the Spanish alternative market for SMEs, okay? In this slide, we find a picture at a glance of the MaB. The MaB, as a junior market, this is an exchange for small companies looking to expand and grow through alternative financial sources with a special set of regulations specifically designed for them with cost and processes tailored to their particular profile. There are 4 segments in this market, but the main ones are 3. The growth companies segment with 40 companies. The REIT segment is real estate investment vehicles, SOCIMIs in Spanish, with 115 companies. Then we have SICAPs. SICAPs are an open-ended investment vehicle with more than 2,500 companies. And another segment such venture capital companies, firms are in development, not being important nowadays on the MaB, okay? And regarding the growth companies and SOCIMI segments, apart from the real estate sector, these companies operate within several sectors such as renewable energies, commodities, pharma and biotech, electronic and software as a services, and engineering services. Why go public? Okay, we should know that going public perhaps is one of the most important milestones that the company achieves during its life. In this sense, the management of the company have to think a lot about it and have to be sure that this step is completely necessary for the company. Otherwise, it is not worth it trying to make an expensive effort if you are not completely sure. So, as a conclusion, it is a critical decision that the management of the company has to be 100% sure. Benefits for the company who is already listed. Well, first of all, it is very important to say that all these benefits we will see now do not depend on the exchange, but depend 99% of the management of the company, especially to the investor relation department. So, among other benefits, we can highlight the following: source of alternative financing, visibility, objective price of the stock, and liquidity. And going one to one, we will start with a source of alternative financing. Okay, you can see in this slide, that a company, by being listed, allows the company to raise capital mainly through capital increases. With this financing access, companies can invest on research and development, marketing expansion plans, or, for example, paying off existing debts. Okay, in this year, 2019 has been especially good for the MaB companies in terms of financing. As you can see on the tables below, the financing from year to year on the MaB companies is improving, reaching this last year 50 capital increases transactions, amounting all of them more than 1 billion with V euros. The other benefits, we can find visibility, and visibility means increasing the public awareness of the company, more opportunities to be watched by institutional and retail investors, more credibility by giving information not only to your clients, but to all the stakeholders of the company. Other benefit will be objective assessment of the company. The value of the company is set by the market. It means supply and demand law. It is very useful for M&A, as you can pay part of the transaction in shares that have an objective value. And it's very easy to develop the transaction because you won't need an additional analysis, valuation analysis of the company, as your price is set by the supply and demand law. And this objective assessment of the company, the company maybe find more easy to carry out capital increases against debt to better structure the balance of the company. Okay. Another benefit, and not less important, is liquidity. Well, first of all, we have to ensure that, and to be honest, low liquidity is inherent to microcaps companies, which frequently have also a limited free float. But it means that a listed company, for example, on MaB, it doesn't mean that that company will have a lot of liquidity. So, but in our experience, shared by several SMEs markets, liquidity might be help or improve thanks to the market makers or liquidity providers. Okay. Liquidity providers, we can say that is an intermediary financial firm with whom the issuer, the company, signed a liquidity contract whereby this firm offers sales with treasury stocks provided by the company and purchase positions using cash also provided by the company during the market session to ensure constant liquidity for the stock. Okay. On MaB, it's mandatory to sign a liquidity contract with these firms if you want to be listed on this market. Anyway, increase of liquidity also depends on the management of the company. So the more proactive management is, the more liquidity the company has. Another benefit, in this case, from the investor's point of view, is the opportunity for especially venture capital firms to divest and exit from the capital by selling their participation to new investors at the moment of the listing. For example, in the last year on the MaB, we have had several companies in which venture capital firms have used the listing to divest. So this benefit has to be taken into account as well. The following slides will show the formal list that implies to be listed on the MaB. Okay. In this matter, I will explain the main admissions requirements and the ongoing requirements as well. But if you agree, as long as all this information, legal information, can be found in the MaB regulation on the website, we are not going to invest much time in explaining all these formal issues. As a mandatory requirements, and always with the help of the corporate film or the nominated advisor, companies seeking a listing on the MaB have to be public limited company, Sociedades Anónimas in Spanish, provide audited financial information of the last 2 years before the listing, prove a high background of the management, and minimum free float. Free float here means shareholders with less than 5% of the company, or the minimum free float of 20% of the company, or 2 million euros of free float among 20 shareholders. The company can choose one of these two options in terms of free float, and get a nomad and liquidity provider to ensure liquidity on the stock. The ongoing requirements, less demanding than those for companies listed in the senior market, we have here financial information reviewed by the auditors half-yearly basis, relevant facts that can affect to the company business development, transactions carried out by the relevant shareholders and management, and fulfill all the information requirements in accordance with the market abuse legislation. That it means, in other words, transparency. Okay. Apart from these requirements, and based on our experience, I will say that it is recommendable that companies wanted to be listed on MaB achieve the following figures: minimum an EBITDA of 3.5 millions and sales amounting 20 or between 20 and 50 millions. If not, the company can be listed on the MaB without impediments, but maybe the pre-market environment will fix best for those companies, for those really small companies. As I have introduced before, the pre-market environment is another business line of Bolsas y Mercados Españoles, and this is a training and networking program to provide growing SMEs, perhaps not ready for MaB, with information on how capital markets work and how they can get access to private and institutional investors. Okay? And at the same time, these pre-market companies will be watched by startups investors and venture capital firms which have signed a partnership with Bolsas y Mercados in this initiative. So today there are 12 companies in this program, and perhaps before this winter ends, one of these companies will be listed on the MaB thanks to the benefits and experience achieved or gained in this pre-market environment program. Okay? And pre-market environment has two segments. One for companies that are able by size to be listed on MaB, but the management want to gain more experience and knowledge on capital markets. And the second segment is focused on startups companies with an exponential growth, thinking about going public in 3 years as an alternative way of financing. So what do a company need to be part of this program? Are quite simple requirements. This company need to be limited companies, minimum age of 2 years, audited annual accounts for the year prior to applying for inclusion in the pre-market environment, to explain a business forecast and estimated for the next 3 years, financing needs, wanting to raise at least €500,000 or holding an interest in financing via securities market, and the permanence requirements are at glance, regular information reporting, maximum 3 years of permanence. There is a mistake on the presentation. It is maximum, not minimum. So the company who wants to be on this pre-market environment has to be maximum 3 years, because we think that in that time the company will be ready for be on the map or in another senior market exchange. Okay. Mandatory communication milestones. So it means transparency, shareholders structure, solvency, and business plan. As a conclusions of this presentation, I will say the following. Okay. Apart from MiFID II, Europe needs to help more SMEs by approving a regulation stimulating and listings and investment. Investors and VC firms can take advantage of a listing process by divesting. As if you are an entrepreneur, it is crucial to know both your goal and the objective of the company in order to analyze if capital markets is the correct way to be followed by your company. And in general terms, an exchange brings more financial visibility and liquidity, provided that the management of the company follows a proactive manner after the bell rings. We can read here on this slide testimonies of MaB companies management explaining how this market are helping in different ways. I think it's very, very useful information and very important testimonies. And regarding the success cases, I will mention 2 which took place last year, 2019, here on the map. Okay. First of all, MassMobile company. MassMobile joined to the map in 2012 with a capitalization of only 13 millions and went public on the senior Spanish exchange 5 years later. Nowadays, this company worth almost 2.5 billions with B euros and belongs to the IBEX 35 index. It means one of the more large companies here in Spain. When 7 years ago, that company value amount 10 million euros, more or less. And a second story, and it is not less important, is Green Energy, because in this last December, Green Energy celebrated the bell ringing on the senior Spanish market after having been listed on the map since 2015. Throughout this process at the map, we have seen how this company, with an initial size of 30 millions, has been growth exponentially until multiplying its value by 12. And Green Energy said goodbye to the map with an IPO attracting more than 40 additional institutional investors and with a valuation close to 400 million euros. That's all. I hope this presentation, this quick presentation, has been useful for the attendees. And should you have any question or should you need any clarification, I'm here to help.
Thank you very much, Valentin, and welcome to Professor Julia Prats, who is Vice Dean of IESE and Chairwoman of
I don't know, Jen,
Committee.
If you want to participate more in this presentation,
yeah,
or if you covered the conclusion of this presentation. Well, I have 3 questions here. Is liquidity not depending on the liquidity of the market? If we are talking about MaB, the MaB as a micro market, the low liquidity is inherent. So the companies needs to contract a liquidity provider in order to help or in order to have more liquidity and in order to help investors to divest or to exit from the company capital, from the capital of the company. And another question is, according to your experience, do you think an IPO challenge characterized especially for SMEs, or instead we have a general problem in Europe, mainly related with the culture of being public? Yes, if we compare with, for example, the UK or the USA, Europe has a lot of to improve. So we have to create an ecosystem helping companies to go public and teaching to the population, to better culture to the financial markets. Okay, this is a very maybe philosophical question that, but in conclusion is that we have to learn from the UK and especially to the United States in capital markets and in financial in general. Okay, because these markets are more dynamic than the Europe's. Another question we have is, what do you think about the idea of developing an SMEs growth market for tech SMEs in particular? I think that SMEs growth market covers all the sectors, being tech, being real estate, being biotech, being energies, commodities. So maybe we can divide an SMEs growth market into segments, and one of them can be the tech segment. But from my point of view, I won't create any particular tech SMEs exchange. I will engulf all the companies in one SMEs growth market. Seems that there is no questions. Only I have to say thank you for being here, being there on the webinar. And on the presentation is my contact. So should you have more question or clarification, please contact me and I will try to answer your through email or through phone. Thank you all.
Thank you very much to everybody.